What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for The Flash, Season 4, Episode 17, titled Null and Annoyed. And this episode is coming off of a month break for The Flash. The show hasn't been on air for that long. Episode 16 aired that long ago, a month ago. So it had a little bit, or a lot to live up to, just because when you come back from a break, you want to have an awesome episode that gets you back into it and gets you with the flow of the season again. But this episode failed to do that entirely. There were a couple of really cool things that got me interested in the season again, but most of it was just not good. It was boring. They should have, if they were going to do that break, if they had to, they should have ended it with this episode, just because, first of all, it has a pretty cool cliffhanger, and second of all, the next episode looks pretty great, at least according to the trailer, so they should have ended it with this episode, especially with the previous episode being the second lowest rated episode of The Flash ever on IMDb, and the first lowest rated is also another episode of Season 4, and it's another one that stars Iris, and I think I know why people don't like these episodes, but going from that episode to this episode, that episode, and then a break, and then this episode, it didn't work. It would have worked much better if they broke the season up from this episode, and then continued it again with episode 18. That would have worked so much better, because this episode was just honestly kind of boring. There were a couple cool things to it, like the reveal at the end, which I will talk about in a minute. The reveal that the Reverse Flash is back, probably, I think, but nothing else about it really was that great. There was one of the side plots, the one with DeVoe, that was actually really good because it really engaged you in the story. It really is setting up Marlise's betrayal of him, which is obviously going to happen. It's setting it up pretty well, and it makes that side plot makes DeVoe so much creepier than he already was, and so much more of a villain than he already was. I think that side plot was actually pretty good. It was really well acted by the actress who plays Marlise DeVoe. I think her name is Kim something. I don't really know, but Kim something. She was pretty good in that role, and it is a little weird how DeVoe is in the Fiddler's body, just because I really want to see Neil Sandilands back again. He was just a much better actor, or actress, I guess, than any of the other... Oh, no, he's a much better actor than any of the other actors or actresses who are portraying DeVoe up until now. I don't see a point in putting DeVoe in those other metahumans' bodies anymore. I just really want to see Neil Sandilands back, and something that bothered me about DeVoe being in Izzy's body in this episode, and I don't know if this happened in the previous episode either, too, maybe it just didn't bother me then, but it's bothering me now, is that why does she have a southern accent, a country accent? It doesn't make any sense, because the accents people have don't go up based off of their bodies or their vocal cords. It goes based off the way they were brought up, or just the way they talk. It's their brain it's the way you talk that makes your accent, not your vocal cords. So it doesn't make any sense how when DeVoe's in Izzy's body, he has a southern accent. It just doesn't make any sense. So I just think that he should definitely go back into Neil Sandilands' body. I don't understand why they're doing this so much, because Neil Sandilands is a series regular in this season, so they could have had him for every single episode, and I just don't understand why they're not having him for every single, or at least almost every single episode. Like, having this body-changing thing for like 1 or 2 episodes was fine, but at this point, it's overdone, and I want Neil Sandilands to return. I know that Clifford DeVoe's body is dead, but the way they can bring it back is by DeVoe getting Ralph's powers somehow, and then just indefinitely transforming back into his old self. And I don't think Ralph should die then. I think it should be revealed that all the metahumans didn't die when they were given DeVoe, when DeVoe got their powers. But I just think they should find a way to have DeVoe get Ralph's powers without Ralph dying, so DeVoe can go back to looking like himself. And I think that's definitely the reason that DeVoe actually created Ralph in the first place. So I really hope that happens. But in this episode, this side plot that I was talking about 2 minutes ago, was actually pretty good, except for the accent that kind of bothered me. So this episode introduced us to another villain of the week in Null, and usually villains of the weeks are pretty bad characters. Like, usually they're just there to fill the episode with some villain. Usually they're just there just to be there, but for the first time, really, they've actually been attributed to the plot of the season. They were kind of in Season 2 because they were from Earth 2, and they were connected to Zoom, and in Season 3, they were the Husks from Flashpoint with Dr. Alchemy, but in this season, it's like never before, they are connected to the story, to the season-long stories, so it makes them necessary, but it doesn't necessarily make them interesting. Null, however, was a pretty interesting character. Not her personality or anything, but her powers were pretty interesting. The way they used it, she used those powers to get out of sticky situations, like when Barry or the Flash cuffed her, and then she had that car which was falling from the sky. That was a pretty smart idea, honestly, but it could have been avoided. Barry could have avoided it just by running her to Star Labs into the pipeline and then running back and saving the car, because we saw that he's pretty fast. He's fast enough to do that. We saw that in episode 15. He's fast enough to stop time. So there was no way he couldn't have done that. But either way, it was a really cool idea on Null's part, despite the fact that it shouldn't work. It was pretty clever, and her powers in general were pretty cool to see. They were used pretty cleverly. Now, the Barry Ralph part of this plot, I've said this in the past, but these two actors really bring out the most from each other when they have these talking scenes. When the actors, I mean Barry and Ralph's actors, Grant Gustin and Hartley Sawyer. I forgot the name for a second, but those two actors really bring out the most in each other whenever they have a scene together. And for some reason, I didn't really see that in this episode. Their dynamic in this episode was interesting just because it was like Ralph cracking jokes, and one of his jokes was actually really funny when he said the DC Comics. When he said, like, we should be comedians in Washington, D.C., and he said we should be called the D.C. Comics, a group of superheroes. That was a pretty funny joke, and the dynamic with that, and Barry thinking that Ralph should act like him, and then Ralph having his own thing, even though joking should be Barry's thing, I guess it works better as Ralph's thing, and the storyline worked, I guess, but they didn't really have any great, amazing moments between the two. There was one moment where they talked, but it wasn't great or anything. It was good. It wasn't great. So this side plot was good, not great. So that's not side plot. This was actually the main plot of the episode, and it was good. It wasn't great or anything, but it was good. So I went over the Devote plot, which is great in my opinion, and this plot, which was good. Now I'm getting to the bad plot. I honestly really hated this plot. I did not like it at all, for multiple reasons. One, I couldn't care less. I really don't care about this character of Breacher, and I've said that he was a pretty cool villain of the week in the episode he was in episode 4, I think. But, I mean, I don't care. I honestly don't care at this point about his character. I don't care that he lost his powers due to old age. It's just not a plot. It's not a story that I wanted to see told, to be honest. But the big thing I didn't like about this episode, about this plot, was Cisco's reaction to him losing his powers from old age by telling him that taking these pills would help him, and I just really hate it when people do that in movies and TV shows, because I don't get it. Why do that? It was just so cliche and so badly written. This side plot was just so cliche and badly written that I could not care less about it, which is why it really drags down the episode, in my opinion. The main plot was good, the DeVoe side plot was great, but this side plot really drags down the episode because it's just so poorly written, it's so cliche, and it doesn't really make me care about it at all. And it's kind of pointless too. The only reason it existed was to show how Breacher retired, which could have just, I mean, it's not like a series regular or anything, it's not a main character, so that could have been off screen. And then it's also there to set up this thing with Cisco becoming the head of this Vibe organization, this Breacher organization maybe, but I know that's not going to pan out because he's a series regular next season probably, I'm pretty sure, but I know for a fact that he's not leaving Team Flash. Maybe temporarily he might, maybe he will permanently, but I don't think so, just because he's a fan favorite character at this point, and he always has been. So either he's going to die or he's going to stay on Team Flash forever. There's no way he is going to go and join this Breacher organization. It's not going to happen, so there really was no point to the storyline. I don't want to see it happen either. It's just not a story I'm interested in seeing, which is why this plot really bogged down the episode, in my opinion. The one thing that saved this episode from being kind of boring, other than like the great side plot, which was the DeVoe one, was the reveal at the end that Reverse Flash, that Harry Wells is actually Eobard Thawne. I'm pretty sure that's what the reveal was. It was a little vague about what the reveal was, but I'm pretty sure it means that Eobard Thawne is back in Harrison Wells' body, and it makes sense just because he has the face-changing technology. He can look like whoever he wants because he's from the future. But I definitely think that if he is back, Eobard Thawne has not been back for a while. It's just that episode. It's just from episode 16. Because if it's been for longer, like since the crossover, that wouldn't make sense. Because in episode 15, they had this whole plot with Harry and Jesse, and they shared memories together of Jesse's mother, and I'm pretty sure Jesse's birth. So that wouldn't make sense if it was Eobard Thawne, which means that Eobard Thawne probably switched himself with Harry in the last episode, in episode 16, when nobody was looking, which would make sense. And I don't know where Harry is. He's probably tied up somewhere. And this isn't confirming that Eobard Thawne is back or anything, but it's pretty clear that this is probably Eobard Thawne, and that's pretty awesome in my opinion. And it's the only thing that saved this episode from. I mean, it's not the only thing, but it's one of the only things that saved this episode from being honestly kind of boring. Last, two things to touch on, and I won't talk about them a lot, but the simulation at the beginning of the episode was pretty cool, and I'm pretty sure it's going to affect the next episode in a big way, like in some sort of twist, which I will talk about in my trailer breakdown for that episode. And the second thing is Kevin Smith's cameo in this episode, along with Silent Bob, I think his name is, was really forced, honestly extremely forced. He did direct the episode and all, but it wasn't fitting, and they're honestly pretty bad actors, at least in this episode. So it was forced, but it didn't really bother me that much. So in conclusion, this episode was a pretty boring episode to come back from a month break on. There was a great plot in the DeVoe one. It wasn't amazing or anything, but it was great. The Barry, Ralph, and Noel plot, which was good, and then a really bad one, which with the Cisco and Breacher thing. But at least it was cool seeing Reverse Flash returning, I think. Again, I'm not 100% sure this is Reverse Flash, but he said that Gideon says to Harrison Wells that it's been a while, and then he says a lot of things have changed since then, and that might be just Harry tricking Gideon, but it's probably Reverse Flash being back and returning in this episode or the last episode, whatever, because it has to be this episode or the last episode. It can't be episode 15. But with all that in mind, I'll give this episode a 7.7 out of 10. Let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for better notifications for my videos and polls. Link is in the description, but if you don't have Twitter or you don't want to follow me, click the notification icon next to the subscribe button. That definitely helps. Thanks for watching.